Hey, deserving listeners, the ultimatum. Let's see what happens.
This came back positive.
I don't believe everyone believes their story.
Brian and Lisa Jr.
Wait, we don't even know if they're really pregnant. Why are we choosing some of this bullshit?
Okay, I don't think this scene was included in the original cut, but they're talking about Lisa and Brian, looking at my notes. Right, Lisa and Brian. And it feels so long ago that we were watching them, even though, and for me, I think it was just like 4 days ago or 3 days ago that I was watching that. And so, yeah, I remember wondering that myself as well. I was like, well, so they have this huge fight, and then they decide they don't want to be on the show anymore, and they want to be together. They don't want to go through, because Lisa was, I think understandably, very worried about the jealousy about watching Brian date someone else. It was overwhelming. I don't think I'd be able to handle that, like, ugh. And why would I want to put myself through that voluntarily? I worried that there was a fine that they might be worried about, and they would stick through it. And when they decided that they weren't going to be on the show anymore, I was like, oh, thank goodness. Because, people should be allowed to pull out. Now, you would think that Lisa, since she was the one that wanted to be on the show, that she would have predicted or at least tried it on for size. And but sometimes you don't know how you're going to feel. And we do have a bias as humans, generally speaking, that we have a really hard time predicting how we're going to feel about things in the future. We will overestimate how negative things will be, and we'll also overestimate how positive things will be. So we're not, all of us are not particularly great at predicting things like how we're going to feel. But anyway, then I'm thinking, so then Nick Lachey informs everybody that, was he in 98 Degrees? Is that the thing? I'm pretty sure that's what people were telling me. I mean, I did know about them, but certainly didn't listen to them. I mean, my goodness. I mean, no offense, but if you knew where the cultural pocket in Seattle music scene that I was in at the time when I think they were coming out, they were the furthest thing away from, art is art, music is music. But anyway, so they were, Nick was saying that they're not going to be on the show anymore. And I was thinking, okay, good. They just opted out. But then Nick says, she tested positive, for being pregnant. And that's not what they usually say. Let's usually say it's test positive for COVID. But she took a pregnancy test, and turned out she's pregnant. And I wondered, and I feel bad for even thinking such a thing, that she would have, but I was thinking, well, if they're trying to get out of that fine, then I imagine that wouldn't be a bad strategy, especially if it works, right? Get you out of that, paying that ridiculous, unethical, I don't even know if that fine exists in the contract. I imagine that it does, but who knows? And then, so I didn't know, we didn't hear, and then I read an article. So the fact that I read an article, and they didn't mention that they were in reunion, so I guess I could have just waited until to see them in the reunion. But anyway, but it sounds like other people thought the same thing that I did. I mean, I didn't think it necessarily. I wondered if other people would think it. It's not as much of a deflection.
Woman, because you were upset, and I did not appreciate that at all.
I don't care.
So then, if I may, you called her a Hooters bitch.
I did.
And I think where they're confused too is you also worked at Hooters.
I don't regret what I said.
No.
Because I didn't base my assumption off of her job. I based it off of how she was acting during this process.
Okay. Yikes. But maybe there was something that happened off camera or not in the edit that would explain why she would say that, because they all 10 of them were very aware of the process. It's all in the contracts. There were probably countless conversations about what to expect. I'm sure that the producers really want to make sure that you understand what you're signing up for, so that people don't do what they did. And because imagine if all, or even three couples out of 5 decided to walk off, millions of dollars would go down the drain. So I'm quite positive that they all knew what they were signing up for and were consenting and saying, yeah, that's what I want. I want to do that. And she changed her mind, which is fine. But Raya was just doing that process of, trying to find someone to do the trial marriage period with, because that's what they all were signing up for, including Lisa. And then Lisa was attacking her. But maybe something happened off camera that would justify Lisa continuing to hold that it was okay to call Raya a name.
It's because for me, I felt like if you are in love with someone that you came here with, you're not seeing someone and you're thinking, oh my God, he's hot. He makes me hot. Like,
It was the
that,
question.
I'm talking. But so.
I mean, I don't need to say anything. It's self-evident. And I don't remember Raya. I mean, maybe Raya did say that. She is mocking her or creating a straw man or something, but that's what you signed up for. Yes, if you were at a party and it was a couple's party and Raya just decided to try to marry your partner, then okay, but I don't know, maybe there's some more detail.
For me, that to me was like, okay, are you really here for the man that you came with, or are you here to come and get your rocks off? Like, what are you here for, really? Because.
Wow. She's had a year to think about everything, and she's still in this position. Plus, it's a well-known problem. It's always easier if I just use me and my wife. So let's say, me and my wife are out and about, and my wife starts to hit on another man while we're out and about. And we don't have that kind of agreement. And instead of going directly to my wife and saying, what are you doing? That hurts my feelings. What's going on? That I'm angry. Instead of doing that, which would make the most logical sense, I go after the guy and decide I'm going to punch him in the face. It's this well-understood trope or tendency or wrong-headedness that, at least from the outside, frequently will occur. And if she wants to, but even still, you're on the ultimatum. But if there was anyone you were going to be upset with, even though it wouldn't make any sense, Brian would be the person, because Brian and her were talking, right? But instead, she goes after Raya, who's, this is bizarre.
Or are you just here to play? What are you here for?
So that's a bigger accusation. You're saying you think that she doesn't love him and want to work on it?
I mean, for me, I just felt at the time, I didn't feel like she was that into the person she came with.
Okay, maybe because she was the one getting the ultimatum. Okay, that doesn't change the fact you're on the ultimatum and you signed, probably several contracts and consent forms saying, I consent that my partner will be dating someone else and living with someone else, and I consent that I will be living with so.
I felt like Trey was a great catch. I'm like, he's this, he's that, he's ready to marry. Why aren't you ready to marry him? I'm like.
So if the conversation somehow gets twisted to where Raya has to somehow defend herself and say, no, I did love him or something, like, wow, what a masterful derailment she did.
At the time, I felt like she doesn't love him.
I mean, I think everybody's guilty of doing this and making assessments on people they don't know very much about. I think you're saying some things that you don't mean when you're talking about Raya. I mean, I heard you say you don't care about the things that you said about her, and I don't know. I think you're a warm person. I think you're nice. I think you're sweet. I think you do care.
Wow. That's really great, Antonio. I don't know how it's going to land, but that's a very charitable, nice, inviting thing to say. To believe in someone, a very therapist-y thing to say, honestly, or a parental thing to say. It's weird for him and Roxanne because there are elements of Antonio where he really comes across like he's a teenager or a child. But there are other elements where he's very much parental in a good way, like if I'm in public and some random person, say we have our grocery carts and we bump into each other, and the other person like just explodes at me. It's just like, we're coming around a corner and boom, and something breaks, and they're like, "This is all your fault." They're screaming at me, and if it's absurd enough, I won't get triggered by that because I'm like, there's no way that I'm to blame for this. And if I'm at my best, I might actually have a good parental mode that I'll go into. It's just like, oh, I'm sorry. Can I fix the problem? I'm not going to take it personally. That's what parents do when their children have meltdowns. Parents don't react to that, but they stay in connection. And that's what he's doing. He's helping. And now maybe it's a little condescending and assuming. She might say like, nope, you're wrong, you're an idiot. I don't think any of those things. But it's very inviting, gives her a chance to be like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I am coming on a little strong. Let's see what Lisa says.
Care about people.
I do. I care about people. Unless they cross me, then I don't care.
She didn't cross you though.
But how did she
we're all
cross
here
you?
Because
doing.
I felt like she was actively after Brian, and I'm just like,
the fact that she still holds on to this, it could just be that she's insecure and feels like she needs to defend herself, and that deep down she's a lot more unsure about her actions. But if she's very sure of this and has been, because this is like a year later-ish, then there's some serious distorting that is going on and perhaps some serious projection going on, right? That she knows what Raya was up to. And I don't think Raya was. I think she was doing what everyone's doing. And, if Raya and Brian did do the trial marriage, do we think that Raya would have been this, the way that she's characterizing her? Getting to know Raya, certainly not the way she's depicting it. Might Raya have been open to developing some intimacy with someone else because she was craving it, because she missed it from, I don't think she was getting it from Trey. And, she seemed to be pretty overtly trying to get it from James. Not sex, but, cuddling and holding hands. She was overt about that. Might she have been similar with James or with Brian? Perhaps, but certainly not in the way that she's characterized. The way she's characterizing Raya as some Machiavellian psychopath that just wants to ruin people's lives and wants to. She's basically calling Raya a slut. Actually, is what I'm hearing.
It's kind of what those feelings were then, right? I'm not saying that they exist now,
right?
Whatever, but she's saying in that moment that's kind of how it felt to her, right?
Can I also just say, sorry, that you probably were just like, I don't know, am I allowed to say hormonal? Your emotions are probably crazy.
That is what prompted me to take a pregnancy test.
I'm just gonna,
because I was so hormonal.
Yeah, I did hypothesize as to, we don't know, there's no way to know, but that, can be a factor. But, a lot of people get pregnant and would never resort to that, right? It's not like hormones turn you into a completely different person. Do we believe that this is the only time in Lisa's life that she's ever done anything in this category? I can't imagine. I'm guessing it could have accentuated it or shortened the time upon which she would have that meltdown. But yeah, it could have been a factor. Yeah. I don't know, but what do I think? I guess it's disappointing. I'm always disappointed. I always hope and believe that people will have some self-awareness and some fairness. The fair thing for her would have been to say, well, I signed up for the ultimatum, which involved me actually having my partner be with someone and me with someone, because we all signed those contracts and we all understand what we were signing up for. And I signed the consent forms. I watched season 1. I knew what I was getting into. And then and I thought I'd be up for it. I thought I could handle it. And then once it started to happen, I started watching Brian, with anybody. It was, it could have been Raya, it could have been anybody. And it terrified me and freaked me out. And I have trauma, you can imagine that, about infidelity or something. We can imagine infidelity or betrayal. And I went to a really dark place immediately. and lost control. I was just like, I was 3 years old again, and my dad was walking out of the house, and I never saw him again. Or I was 15 and experiencing a violation a traumatic violation that I experienced. Or I was transported back to when I was in this 5-year relationship in my early 20s, and I would occasionally watch him openly flirting with other women, and then I would hear about infidelity behind the scenes, and it just tore me apart. And I thought I'd be able to handle it, but then when I saw it, I just flipped, and I yelled at you, Ryan, that I think maybe you were up to something, about who knows, and certainly you didn't deserve me to make those assumptions, and I'm just embarrassed about the whole thing, and it's something like that. I always envision that's what people are going to do, and then it never happens. I mean, it's the best I can hope for is that it's kind of in that direction, but that she's basically in the same place and hostile towards Raya. She's still openly angry and hostile towards Raya, like instantly. As soon as the topic is brought up, she's going after her. Wow.
You're absolutely right. That's what we talked about before, is that is what prompted me to take a pregnancy test, because I felt so not myself.
Okay. So then where's the apology, or at least the acknowledgement? If you weren't, which one was it? Do you not regret it, or were you not yourself?
That happened that night, and I was like, I think I need to take a pregnancy test. And when I did, it was positive, and I was like, not that it excuses my behavior at all, but it definitely made me realize that this is why I'm acting psycho. So I was very remorseful for doing that. Like, it wasn't okay.
Wow. What a turnaround. Okay. I can sigh of relief. Is there a sigh of relief emoji somewhere?
I will say throughout the process of it was so intense that it kind of hit me in a different way. My anxiety just went through the roof. Roxanne, no, it went through the roof. I just didn't think it would be that intense.
Okay, so for those of you who watched the show, you're like, wait, great, she's just about, but it did not look like she was ever going to get to this place earlier. With a number of statements she was saying. So I got a cough, a pretty bad cough, weeks and weeks ago, and then a few weeks later I got COVID, and the cough returned, or there was a new cough. So weeks and weeks after that, I still have a cough. I don't have any kind of respiratory issues, but it's just this compulsion to cough. Anyway, so I apologize. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself, truly, because you deserve it. You really, really do.